10's Late News with Sandra Sully.
Tonight, how rescuers are trying to prevent more deaths in this Tasmanian tragedy. A family's battle to deal with the murder of their security guard's son, shot dead in the line of duty.
Like all dads, he loved his son, and that hurts, knowing that he's not going to grow up to see his child.
And Princess Di's secret abortion. The author of a new book claims it's a fact. Hello there. First tonight, dozens of whales and dolphins have beached themselves in Tasmania and many have died. And we warn that some viewers may find images in this next report distressing.
A pristine stretch of King Island coastline, thick with the stench of more than 70 whales and dolphins left baking under a hot sun. More than 100 mainly adult female pilot whales and bottlenose dolphins died in the mass stranding. Makeshift rescue teams of locals managed to save half a dozen.
A couple of blokes dropped them, turned them round and poked them out, pointed them out to sea, and they departed in peace.
The majority of the deceased still lay where they died. Others have been swept out to sea, waiting to provide a meal to sharks and killer whales.
I've lived here for 50 years and I've never seen anything like this.
Without any recent extreme weather in the area or sign of attack by predators or disease, scientists are baffled by the stranding.
So it's very valuable information, although very tragic at the time.
Keen to prevent any further loss of life, teams of police and wildlife officers are now trying to guide a further pod of 30 dolphins and whales that were this morning spotted close to shore, further out to sea. And on the other side of Tasmania, another 50 pilot whales have beached at Maria Island off the east coast. Half have died. More rescuers are making their way to the remote area to see what can be done. A government spokesperson says the cause of this stranding is not known. Clinical tests will be carried out on as many of the whales and dolphins as is possible, as scientific minds as well as curious young ones attempt to make sense of such a great loss. Cameron Bowe, 10 News.
Some new pictures now of a great white shark sighted today off an Adelaide beach. Darren Edwards and Noel Flounders were 12 kilometres out from North Haven when they snapped this beast in clear water. Their boat was almost 5 metres long, and they say the shark was longer than that. It stayed with them for about 20 minutes, judging the prop and grabbing at some fishing gear, and then as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished. A doctor could hold vital clues to the killer of a Melbourne security guard. Police believe it's possible that the killer needed medical help, and a doctor might have unwittingly treated him before the killer went into hiding.
Jason Gully has been taken from his family, his shattered wife and their baby boy among them.
Like all dads, he loved his son, and that hurts, knowing that he's not going to grow up to see his child.
Now his family wants justice.
I don't wish my son's killers, I don't give them any forgiveness. I think to cold-heartedly kill another human is an evil thing.
The security guard murdered during an armed robbery on a Melbourne gaming venue. 3 masked bandits storming the club just before midnight, one wielding a high-powered rifle, an exchange of gunfire erupting.
Several shots were fired inside. The security guard was hit multiple times. It's quite clear that at least 2 shots have been fired from his gun, and we know that one of the offenders is injured.
It's unclear who fired first. Police appealing for information from any doctors who may have unwittingly treated the wounded killer. Mr Gully had been guarding the club since another robbery on Melbourne Cup Day, possibly by the same offenders. Tragically, the victim had wanted to become a policeman like his father, who discouraged him because of the dangers.
I said, I don't want you to be a policeman's son, but he pursued a similar career and became a security guard, and of course, it's got all the associated dangers.
Jeremy Pudney, 10 News.
Angry scenes when 18 men appeared in court charged over a Queensland riot. At one stage, family and friends of the men were removed from the courtroom.
The 18 accused riot ringleaders arrived early at the Townsville Magistrates Court. Their large group of supporters not far behind, some urging calm.
We're in peace and justice in support of our sons and grandsons.
Others loudly defiant.
This is the corner that Australian legal justice pushes us into.
Now, if the truth is going to be told, let it be told for what it is. not for what people think it to be.
Further complicating the legal process, the ages of the accused, from 14 to 60, on a raft of charges from parole violations to inciting a riot and arson. None of the 18 applied for bail, as several rowdy supporters were ordered out of the court's public gallery.
And you call me a hypocrite? You are the hypocrite!
They think that a placard might harm them in any way?
Meanwhile, police have also begun scouting likely locations on Palm Island for a new police station and courthouse in the wake of last week's firebombing. Replacement police cars have also arrived by barge to replace resources lost in the rioting. A gradual build-up ahead of Cameron Doomadgee's funeral later in the week.
And I appeal to the leadership within the Palm Island community to support us in ensuring that that time goes by peacefully without any trouble.
Meantime, Crime and Misconduct Commission investigators have also returned to Palm Island to resume interviewing witnesses claiming to have seen police attacking Cameron Doomadgee shortly after his arrest. Tim Collins, 10 News.
A bushfire emergency forced a school evacuation on the Sunshine Coast yesterday afternoon. Students from Coolum State High were sent home early as thick smoke blanketed the area and flames moved towards buildings. Dozens of fire officers eventually brought the blaze under control with extensive backburning.
What happened was a branch had come down power lines and it arced and caused sparks and set fire to the grass and took off.
Fire crews will closely monitor the area throughout the night. Some advice now for parents of New South Wales. Record temperatures are forecast for Tuesday and students may be sent home from school if classrooms get unbearable. The State Education Department has asked schools to prepare for the worst, but is leaving the final decision up to each principal. The top tomorrow in Sydney is expected to hit 42 degrees, the result of a blanket of hot, dry air streaming in from Central Australia. The answer to many a long night for the partners of snorers. Australian researchers are using groundbreaking laser techniques to stop the deadly habit.
Heavy snoring is a direct result of obstructive sleep apnea. The condition affects up to 6% of adults. It's caused when the airway relaxes to a point that it actually collapses, leaving the sufferer deprived of a deep sleep and extremely lethargic. Now, in a world first, Perth researchers have found a way to pinpoint the exact cause and extent of the problem in each patient.
Our device is a very sophisticated way to measure where in the airway it's collapsing, how often it's collapsing, what the shape of the airway is, and importantly, we can do it during sleep and during breathing.
A tiny rotating laser is inserted down the airway in a plastic tube, sending out light signals which are then used to calculate the airway dimensions. It means doctors can develop and tailor treatments to the individual needs of sufferers.
I think our tool will address that gaping hole in our knowledge.
Until now, diagnosis has required expensive and uncomfortable procedures using CAT scans or MRI machines, which inhibited the patient's ability to relax and doctors' ability to obtain accurate results.
And once you get used to the sensation of getting the catheter in, it's absolutely fine, and you can certainly relax and lie back, and it's no problems at all.
The development has just received more than $180,000 in national medical research funding and could be completed within 12 months. Jacinda Birch, 10 News.
We have some details on a food recall tonight. Check your cupboards for Nestle Choc Bits dark chocolate. The company says the product could cause problems for people with a rare milk protein allergy. The recall applies to 100, 250 and 375 gram packets. It's been found that some labels on these packs don't say the product milk protein. Further information is available on a free call telephone number, and it's on your screen, 1800 069 678. According to some eager beavers, you're dragging the chain if you haven't got the Christmas lights up yet. And we found a family that goes a whole lot further.
See this yard and you just know Santa Claus is coming to town. It's marvellous to look at, would you believe, only half finished. Every day after work, Dad Richard slaves away like a suburban Christmas elf, tying bulb after bulb, snowman after candy cane, even making reindeer prance along the harbour bridge.
In excess of 30,000 globes this year. And time-wise, it takes approximately 6 weeks to set the display up. but you're planning the whole year.
Not keen to admit to his wife just how much he spends on his Christmas cheer, but
Probably in excess of 50,000, I suppose.
his hobby for 10 years started with a small tree. Now their Wahroonga home in Sydney's north is nicknamed the Christmas House. The neighbourhood children love it. Richard's kids weren't always so sure.
As teenagers, they were a little embarrassed that their parents had a house that shone in the dark.
Why does he go to all the effort?
Everybody in this day and age have busy lives, so they walk up and down and people don't talk that much. But all of a sudden, as soon as you start throwing a few lights into a tree and put Santa up, everyone talks.
And don't think once Christmas is over, Richard will rest. His daughter's getting married here on New Year's Eve. So for Richard, that means a whole new set of lights, including fireworks over the Harbour Bridge. His daughter's hoping he'll make it to the ceremony on time. While his family thinks he's a Christmas genius, he can get carried away.
I wouldn't get down off the ladder to give permission to my now fiancé to marry me, so.
Jacinta Hocking, 10 News.
Why the opposition leader started his day with an apology. We're following that story when we come back. Also ahead, did Princess Diana have a secret abortion? A new book's startling claims. And in sports tonight, look who's ended Ian Thorpe's 5-year reign as Australian Swimmer of the Year. Pretty woman Julia Roberts has given birth to a son and daughter in Los Angeles. She and husband Danny Moder welcomed Hazel Patricia and Phineas Walter into the world 6 weeks prematurely. Both are reportedly being cared for in humidity cribs and are doing well. A shocking new biography on Princess Diana says that she had a secret abortion in 1994. The book says she became pregnant to an unnamed lover after separating from Prince Charles, but before the official divorce. The author claims Diana desperately wanted the baby, but didn't want to shame her sons William and Harry. The allegation comes a day before sensational new tapes are due to air on American television. In those tapes, Diana alleges that the palace murdered a bodyguard she had an affair with. Protesters have broken into piggeries across the nation amid claims of systemic animal cruelty. They're now calling for a Christmas boycott of piggery, pork and ham.
Activists say these are the sad faces of the festive season, launching pre-dawn protests in 4 states. WA demonstrators battening down at the Gin piggery they raided just 6 weeks ago. In Queensland, protesters chained themselves to the cramped holding pens they say are illegally cruel.
We're not letting ourselves out of the piggery until our stalls are banned or until we get arrested.
These sows are still in the same stalls, and we actually saw lacerations on the sows caused by the stalls.
Police were called. Perth activists claim farmers assaulted them and broke their camera. The protesters defending their stand.
Entering without permission is okay, considering the plight of these animals and the fact that that's a crime much greater.
The Gin farmer has dismissed the assault claims. He says his sows spend 6 months of the year in free-range pens, and it was protesters who were being irresponsible, exposing the animals to disease risk from an early Christmas present of straw and apples. Recent RSPCA inspections revealed some Gin pens were smaller than the voluntary national code, but they couldn't prosecute. The farmers say they're now installing much bigger pens. The government's awaiting the results of a national review, but a month out from Christmas, protesters are calling for a boycott on intensive piggery, pork and ham.
Think about the suffering of these animals and perhaps rethink your purchase.
Nick Way, 10 News.
A rocky start to a school leavers Pacific Ocean cruise today. Police and customs officers swooping as they prepared to board their ship, seizing a small amount of cannabis and arresting one person. 1,750 students were checked with the help of sniffer dogs at Darling Harbour in Sydney.
We had 2 detections. One was for cannabis and the other one we actually found in the car park where it had been dropped down on the ground. They obviously saw us there, so from that it was a good outcome for us.
The ship has now left, bound for Vanuatu, New Caledonia and some other Pacific islands. When we come back, why the federal opposition leader started his day with an apology. We're back soon. A man is missing after a boating accident on Canberra's Lake Burley Griffin. Police divers are searching the lake and will continue to do so throughout the evening. They arrived to find a man's jet ski floating adrift on the lake, but there's no sign of its rider. It's believed that the man is from Canberra and in and is in his 30s. Leadership tensions continue to dog the Federal Labor Party despite an uneasy truce between Mark Latham and his internal critics. The government now revelling in Labor's post-election squabbles.
Typical of Labor's recent fortunes, opposition leader Mark Latham started his day with an apology.
For those supporters of ours who feel let down by the party's behaviour since the election, we're sorry for that. We're going to improve.
Apologies of sorts are in season in the Labor Party, spearheaded by Victorian Senator Stephen Conroy, who was forced to express regret for recent disunity to avoid a showdown at today's shadow cabinet meeting. Senator Conroy had to cringe his way through coalition barbs in Senate question time, but that was nothing to what Mark Latham copped in the House of Representatives.
And on the weekend, Mr. Speaker, a rooster declared a jihad on a dead parrot. This is the animal farm that the Australian Labor Party now represents.
Despite the anger within the party, Mark Latham's confident his uncomfortable truce with his critics will stick.
If we don't do that as a party, we run the risk of throwing away the next election, having just lost the last one.
The collapse of morale within Labor is now obvious. The Christmas break can't come soon enough for a party in the depths of despair, badly wounded by the election defeat and heavily out of love with its leader. Frontbenchers openly sniping at each other.
I think the whole party's tiring of Mr Conroy's concern that he's not the leader in the Senate. Quite frankly, he was shafted for that position by a number of his associates.
While Labor squabbled, new MPs on both sides of politics began giving their maiden speeches, among them high-flyer merchant banker Malcolm Turnbull. He bussed in supporters from his Liberal seat of Wentworth in Sydney.
We're very excited about being here.
Mark Latham giving them a welcome they didn't expect.
I welcome their applause because never have so many people from Vaucluse travelled so far to also listen to me.
Greg Turnbull, 10 News.
Hopes are high that Australia and 10 Southeast Asian nations will agree on a timetable to dismantle regional trade barriers. Our political editor Paul Bongiorno is covering the ASEAN summit in Laos.
Sandra, the Prime Minister arrived early evening in the Lao capital. Tonight he's attending the formal ASEAN dinner where he'll rub shoulders with the other summiteers. In a late development, a senior Thai official has disagreed with Australia's reasons for not signing the non-aggression pact. He says South Korea and Japan will sign up, and they've got formal treaties with the United States similar to our ANZUS pact. Well, here's how things developed at the summit during the day. A right royal welcome for the 10 leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations as they arrive for their formal summit. Australian and New Zealand flags prominent. This year our Prime Ministers have been invited for their own summit talks tomorrow. Malaysia's Prime Minister Badawi preempting the outcome by announcing negotiations for a region-wide free trade agreement will happen.
ASEAN will commence negotiations with Japan, Korea, Australia and New Zealand.
But as the ASEAN leaders struggle to join hands at their meeting's start, there's similar difficulty in agreeing on inviting Australia to become an annual summit participant. Mr Howard will be welcomed here for very pragmatic reasons. The ASEAN nations are very anxious to do bigger and better business with us as a buffer against the awakening economic giant of China. That's why John Howard isn't worried about his refusal to also sign a non-aggression treaty.
It's the substance of the trade relationships that matters rather than formal documents and formal processes. It's how much you sell and how much you buy.
Mr Howard doesn't believe Australia comes to the forum begging ball in hand, but with an offer ASEAN won't want to refuse. In Vientiane, Paul Bongiorno, 10 News.
Time to check finance news now, and at Commonwealth Securities tonight, Tom Petrovsky. Tom, retail stocks, they're certainly riding a wave of Christmas optimism.
That's true, Sandra. That optimism is being driven by a combination of pre-election spending by the government and at the same time some upbeat comments from the retail sector in recent weeks. So the market is now focused on a strong Christmas as far as consumer spending is concerned. Today, most retail stocks bounded higher ahead of tomorrow's retail sales figures, which will give an idea of whether or not Australians got an early start on their Christmas shopping in October.
And Tom, company profits looking a whole lot brighter.
A strong result for company profits in the September quarter, Sandra. A combination of low interest rates, stable inflation and also a very confident outlook as far as business is concerned had company profits increased by 3.5% in the September quarter, which was much stronger than expected. Compared to a year ago, profits are now up by 13%, which is certainly a result that helped the market skip to a new record close today.
Thanks, Tom. Comsec's Tom Petrovsky. Let's take a look at the market now, and it continues to strengthen. The All Ordinaries Index adding another 15 points today as it charges towards the psychological 4,000-point barrier. Its surge was underpinned by gains in the banking and retail sectors, while blue chip stocks also held firm. Today's worse than expected current account deficit figures hit the Aussie dollar. It slipped back below 79 American cents. It's buying 41 pence, 80 yen and 59 euro cents. Gold is fetching an even $450 US an ounce. The news on the national weather is next, and then it's the latest from the Sports Tonight desk with Tim Webster.
Sandra, thank you. Coming up, why New Zealand's cricketers are praying for rain, shocks and stunning goals in the Premier League, and the headhunter who does it just for kicks. Nation kicking.
Today's weather are mostly sunny conditions forecast around Cairns, Townsville and Brisbane. A total fire ban's been imposed across the whole of New South Wales as temperatures are expected to hit record highs, so expect a windy and hot day in both Sydney and Canberra. Late showers are forecast around Melbourne. It should be showery in both Hobart and Adelaide. Mainly sunny in Perth and across the Red Centre. Late thunderstorms forecast for Darwin. And that's the latest from the 10 News Centre for this Tuesday now, November the 30th. Sports Tonight is next. I'm Sandra Sully from the team. We'll see you tomorrow. No, tonight. Good night.